The Atlantic Charter, 1941. A blueprint for the post-war world. Here's a quick overview you can use for your notes. An essay, or a presentation. When, where, August 9th to 12th, 1941, off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada, aboard the HMS Prince of Wales and the USS Augusta, who, Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR of the United States, and Winston Churchill of the United Kingdom. What a joint statement of their war aims and the principles for the post-war world. Note, it was not a legally binding treaty. Why it mattered. It framed Allied goals and sketched the rules and institutions of the post-World War order. The 8 core principles, in plain language. 1. No territorial expansion. Neither the US nor the UK sought to gain territory from the war. 2. No forced border changes. Any territorial adjustments should reflect the freely expressed wishes of the peoples concerned. 3. Self-determination and restoration. Peoples should be allowed to choose their own governments, and sovereignty should be restored where it had been taken by force. 4. Equal access to trade and raw materials. All states should have open and non-discriminatory economic access to raw materials and trade. 5. Economic cooperation and social welfare. The two leaders pledged to work together to raise living standards, promote economic progress and social security. 6. Peace that ends fear and want. They aimed to build a peace that would enable all nations to live in safety, free from fear and want. 7. Freedom of the seas. Ships should be able to travel the oceans without hindrance. 8. Collective security and disarmament of aggressors. Aggressor states should be disarmed and a permanent system of general security created to abandon force as a tool of policy. Why is it called a blueprint? Because it provided the basic principles for a new world order and directly inspired several key institutions and norms. United Nations. Its call for a permanent system of general security foreshadowed the UN Declaration by United Nations, 1942. UN Charter, 1945. Economic Order Principles 4 to 5 pointed toward the post-war economic institutions such as the IMF and World Bank created at Bretton Woods in 1944, as well as post-war trade liberalization through the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs GATT, which later became the World Trade Organization. Human security. The emphasis on freedom from fear and want tied the war effort to universalist aims, echoing FDR's famous for freedom speech, and delegitimizing conquest. The Atlantic Charter set a norm against territorial aggrandizement and coercive border changes, which became a core element of the post-1945 international system. Impact and ripple effects. In January 1942, 26 nations, including the USSR, China, and India, endorsed the principles in the Declaration by United Nations. This aligned wartime aims with post-war commitments and helped mobilize populations around a common purpose. Moreover, anti-colonial leaders in India, Africa, and Asia cited the Charter's self-determination language to press for independence. Churchill insisted that this did not apply to the British Empire, exposing a key tension between the principles and practice of decolonization. The Atlantic Charter also buttressed U.S. advocacy of freedom of the seas and a liberal trading order. But remember, it wasn't legally binding. It was simply a statement of intent lacking enforcement mechanisms until the institutions were formed later. Furthermore, the principles were often implemented unevenly and slowly, especially regarding colonial rule and self-determination. Initially skeptical, the USSR later joined the broader UN framework while interpreting the principles through its own security lens. If you want me to continue, please let me know in the comments.